Hey guys, this is Eric from ChesterUniversity.com, and welcome to another edition of Crushing Dubious Openings. In this video, I want to share a kind of must-know opening for all E4 players. And it's a very rare variation, but I think it's one of those lines where if you don't know it, you can get into trouble very quickly. If you do know it, you'll be well on your way to an early advantage. So without further ado, let's get into it. This occurs in the Petrov after e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, knight take e5, knight take e4. Now you might be thinking that this is just bad for black because after queen e2, if the knight moves, then there's knight c6 and white wins the queen. And this has happened among a lot of beginner games that I've witnessed where black tries to play copycat chess but just loses the queen after 5 moves. However, there is a point to this line for black. Instead of retreating the knight, black can continue to copy white and play queen e7. And the point is that after queen take e4, d6, black wins back the piece and gets some interesting counterplay. So the best move for white here, I think, is very obvious, to play d4 and win a pawn. So after take, white has given back the knight, but now is up a pawn. Now this position, black will play knight c6. And then white has to decide how to proceed, whether to defend the pawn, whether to do something else. There's a bunch of candidate moves here, for example, bishop to b5, f4, bishop f4, even knight c3. So what I want to show is one of the main points for black, one of the main traps that white can fall into, and then I'll show you the so-called refutation to this line. So I actually encountered this many years ago from the white side, and I fell into one of the classic traps kind of unknowingly. I played bishop to f4, which looked like the most reasonable move, just defending the pawn, developing the bishop. And my opponent, who is much, much lower rated than me, he played g5, which already looks kind of strange. And I didn't really take too long. I just played the most natural move, bishop g3. However, after black's next move, white is losing a piece. So if you want to try and find this, black to move, win material, pause your video, and play the best move. Okay, so the move is pawn f5. And I was somewhat shell-shocked when this was played over the board, because I realized I can't en passant. My e-pawn is pinned by the queen on e7. And meanwhile, black is threatening my queen, also threatening to trap the bishop with f4. And white's just losing a piece, and black is already much, much better. So this is one reason to play this opening for black if you think white is unprepared. However, if we go back, let me show how to crush this opening from white's side. So the best move here is actually not to defend the pawn, but to accelerate development and give the pawn back. That move being knight to c3. And now I should note black has 2 ways to take the pawn. One of the ways loses immediately. Knight take e5 is completely unplayable because of knight d5. And black loses material because he can't defend all the targets in the position. If a move like queen to d6 is played, white can, I believe, very simply respond with a move like f4. So with that in mind, really the only move for black to play here is queen take e5. And then after queen take e5, knight take e5, white will continue developing with tempo, starting with bishop f4. And what this does, skewers the pawn and the knight, or the knight and the pawn, I should say, and essentially forces black to play bishop d6. Now in this position, white has a really nice and instructive move. And I don't want to give too many clues, but if you want to try and find it, pause your video, white to move, play the best continuation. So the move here is a really nice, subtle, quiet move, and it takes some understanding in the position. Move is bishop to g3. And the reason why this is so powerful is essentially you have to understand what white wants to do. White would like to play either knight to b5 or knight e4. However, if white plays one of these moves immediately, let's say knight b5, that just runs into knight to f3 check, allowing black to win white's dark squared bishop. And if we notice, white would like to trade this knight for this bishop and maintain his own bishop. So when white plays bishop to g3, he's threatening knight e4 and knight b5 without allowing any knight f3 check possibilities. And it turns out that black can't really defend against both of these threats, knight b5 or knight e4, and it's just a positional threat. White wants to play either of these moves, trade the knight for the bishop, and then create an isolated pawn on d6. So if black just plays a normal move here, let's say castling, white can go ahead, play knight b5, and after something like rook e8, white can very simply take the bishop, take queenside castle, and this is a really, really nice position for white to have early in the middle game. Better pawn structure, 2 bishops. This pawn is incredibly weak on d6. It might even be lost. I don't think I see any way for black to defend it. So it goes to show that if we go back to this position, the key move is bishop to g3. And if we just look at one other line for black, black could try to play f6 here. But that's not typically a move that really helps improve the position for black. White can go ahead, still play knight b5. And after a move like bishop to b4 check, c3, bishop a5, white can simply castle queenside. And I think this is already a very, very pleasant position for white. Ideas of f4 coming, maybe bishop c4, rook he1. White's pieces will very much be in harmony, while black is kind of scattered all over the place. And c7 and e5 are still under pressure. So I hope this is of some value to many players, and especially e4 players. Because I know a lot of e4 players, they'll play against a Petrov, but they won't necessarily know this tricky variation. So I hope that helps. If you guys have questions, feel free, leave a comment in the video. And also check out chesteruniversity.com for more awesome content like this. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks.